Hey everyone, it's time for another edition of Beaver Banter.
Beaver Sports Talk lives here.
It is the Beaver Banter podcast. I'm CJ Baumgartner. Ian Rivers, my co-host, apologize already for the audio, having a little bit of that issue. So we are using the laptop's internal microphone. So apologize for that on my end, but Ian is crystal clear, good as ever. How you doing?
Great, man. I'm doing great. Some weather today, some weather rolled through. I'm not sure how bad it was in other parts of the state, so I don't want to sound too.
I think that area got the brunt of it.
Well, if that was the brunt of it, that was nothing, dude. Like, I was on TikTok all weekend, and they're talking about how we should just take our own lives so that the storm doesn't get the chance to do it for us. Like, that's how bad they were making this thing seem. And I think we got 3 minutes of downpour, and then it was just done. I'm like, what? I thought there was going to be mad tornadic activity, which I heard there was some down south, near the Faribault area and Mankato. So I don't know if that's true or not, but yeah. So if anybody had some of that weather come their way, hope you're safe. All right. But up here, it wasn't that bad. So yeah, just kind of enjoying the springtime. I know the weather was rough, but at least it was shorts weather today. And that's always a fun time.
Yeah, exactly. It was really cool this morning because of all the rain upon the time of this recording. And then by the time I left work, I was like, it is sticky and warm. Yeah. So 'tis the season. Speaking of that, might as well be a good time to talk a little men's hockey because, might as well, before we talk a little bit about the spring sports, some of them beginning to wrap up for the season. Also, I think it's important to note, this is our penultimate episode of the 2024-25 season. We're going to have our season finale next week. And of course, we do the customary thing of we wrap up whatever needs to get wrapped up. We also go over our top moments for BSU over the course of the year and talk about that and just, do things like that. So that's just something to keep an eye out for. We got this episode and then one more next week. And we're taking a break like we usually do for the summer. Something breaking news-wise comes up that we feel the need to do an emergency podcast. We will hop back in the chairs and do it. But, like we did last year with Augustana joining the CCHA in July and things like that. But obviously not a ton going on in the summertime, so we just kind of let that be, and we take a break, and then we hop back in for the fall. But so that is going to happen here over the next couple weeks. But as we talk about stuff that's going on right now, Ian, Bemidji State has not put out their schedule to see for men's hockey. The CCHA has not put out their schedule yet, but there are some schools who Bemidji State typically plays that are putting out their schedules for the season, and the Beavers are on it. So as we kind of try to reverse engineer some of the dates to watch out for, if you're maybe starting to plan that weekend for next fall, next winter, what are we looking at, Ian?
Yeah, like CJ said, we kind of know the non-conference schedule earlier than we know the conference schedule. Hopefully, I don't know if it'll happen or not, but I'm hoping that the conference schedule drops within the next week or so that we can talk about it next week. Before we go away for the summer. But yeah, the 4 teams that we are officially confirmed to be playing next season are Alaska Anchorage, SCSU, Duluth, and UND. So some of the familiar names that you're used to, and then Alaska Anchorage as well. Alaska Anchorage will, I assume, kick off the season. That is the weekend of the 3rd and 4th of October, and that will be in Anchorage. So if you want to watch the Beavers play that weekend, you'll have to take quite a trip, flight drive if you want. It's probably a long one, but yeah, you'll have to go up to Anchorage for that one. Then the next weekend they come home, they have a home and home with SCSU the 10th and the 11th. Looks like the 10th will be in Bemidji and the 11th will be at St. Cloud State. The next weekend after that, it's another home and home, this one with Duluth. Again, the Friday night looks to be in Bemidji and the Saturday night game in Duluth. And then kind of similar to what we've seen over the last few seasons with North Dakota being kind of around the holiday break time with Thanksgiving. looks like another home and home with North Dakota. The Friday night, I assume it's Friday night. It just says 11/28, and I unfortunately don't know whether that's a Friday or not. It could be weird because it's a holiday weekend, but on the 28th, it'll be in Bemidji, and on the 29th, it'll be in UND. And like we said, that's all we know for now. It is worth mentioning that they do get like an Alaska exemption for playing in Alaska. You get a certain amount of games extra that you can schedule. However, we did not use the icebreaker exemption a couple of years ago when we hosted that tournament with North Dakota. So common consensus is probably that we won't be utilizing this one either, but it's just something to keep your eye on, because if they found an opponent that they could play outside of the conference, they could technically add another series in there. But that's all we know for now. And like I said, hopefully the CCHA drops their schedule here within the next week so that we have a little bit extra to talk about next week, CJ, because like you said, it's kind of dwindling down. We've only got, I think, 2 sports that are still in session as we're talking here. One of them is baseball, the other being track and field, which there's nothing wrong with track and field. It's just a little bit harder to monitor and talk about because it's not like you necessarily win or lose a game. It's a bunch of individual athletes competing in a bunch of individual events most of the time. So it's a little bit harder to chat about and monitor as it goes around. But yeah, it's interesting time of year. Hockey is it's all year round though. We keep hockey going all year round though.
Yes, we do. Yeah, we do, because, we're Division I men's and women's hockey school. Why would you not talk about that a whole bunch? But yeah, I mean, look at starting with track and field. I mean, yeah, they competed over the weekend in the Viking Classic, the Bison Open, the Drake Relays, the Kip Jarvin Open. Like they were just everywhere throughout the weekend. And just to kind of go back to the Viking Classic, which was in Des Moines, there's a little recap here from the 4-meet weekend that they did, which, it sounds like, they competed at 4 meets, and maybe they did. I know a lot of times it's like, hey, this meet, like, we're bringing the throwers, and this meet we're bringing the runners, or our relay is going to go compete at this meet. And, it's kind of can get segmented because, again, track can, like you said, Ian, can kind of be a complex sport to break down kind of on the micro level in terms of that. But looking at the Kip Jarvin Open, which was hosted by Simpson College in Indianapolis, Indiana, Indianola, Indiana. Who could forget?
That's Iowa.
Was it really? Oh my gosh, man! Yeah. Track, man. Anyway. Can you tell it's the end of our season? All right. Looking at the meet, the Beavers had 2 student athletes in Maggie McCarthy and Sydney Price compete at the meet. McCarthy had a 4th place finish in the 3,000 meter steeplechase with an 11:27 finish. That's 11 minutes, 27.7 seconds. Price finished the women's 1,500 meter run at a time of 5:37.24. Going to the Viking Classic, McKenna Frazier took lead in the Beavers for the 100-meter dash at 4th place with the time of 13:10. Millie Rosegg broke into the top 5 in the 100-meter hurdles with the 2nd place finish at 14.83. And Rosegg also took 3rd in the high jump at 1.48 meters. Haley Selly grabbed 3rd in the women's 800-meter hurdles at a time of 1:16.78. McKenna Patron found 2nd in the hammer throw at 44.12 meters. Trista Bilden and Ellie Betcher finished the meet with 2 top 5 finishes. Bilden taking 1st in the event at 34.1 meters, and Betcher taking 4th at 30.36. And then you flip over to Fargo, where Bemidji State had 4 student athletes competing, with Sophie Rylance and Ava Werner competing in the 800-meter run and the 1,500-meter run. Rylance finished 5th in the 15. Finished the 1,500 in 5th place at 5:04, and Werner's top finish was also in the 1,500, taking 10th at 5:32.92. Callie Ressler finished the 3,000-meter steeplechase with 13:48, taking 3rd, and finally Chloe Knott was just 0.1 meter away from tying her PR, grabbing 10th in the pole vault at 2.85, and then they competed in the infamous Drake relays Friday and Saturday. Zeta Priebe took 12th in the discus throw with a distance of 44.96, fourth amongst the NSIC competitors. The 4x200 meter team of Josie Aiken, Millie Roseg, McKenna Frazier, and Haley Selly finished in 24th with a time of 1 minute 52.15 seconds. And finally, McKenna Patterin finished the women's javelin throw in 12th place with a throw of 37.91 meters, just a few meters shy of the top spot won by Ella Weipert of the University of Minnesota. They now have the Cobber Open in Moorhead on the weekend, and possibly they could get another meet in, according to bsubeavers.com, if things kind of work out. And then, of course, in a couple weeks, they close things out with the NSIC championships, which are hosted in Duluth. That's kind of been a typical spot. They're typically up there at UMD. Overall, just looking at a lot of this, just a lot of stuff happening. There is one thing I saw here in this article, and no disrespect to the people that do stuff at bsubeavers.com, but they use the word infamous, and that means something bad. So, like, maybe I'm just lost on the lore of BSU women's track and field. Are the Drake relays, like, is that just a spot where, like, nobody does well? Like, certain courses, it's like everybody PRs here because of the way that, like, it's built. And then certain ones, it's like, this play, you're just going to do bad here. Is it just because they don't want to be in Iowa? Like,
yeah. Infamous, of course, is like, it's a lot of people know about it, but it's like, not for the right reasons. You know, it's like some guy in, Europe in like the late 30s and early 40s. Like, that would be somebody infamous because he's well known, but it's all for the wrong reasons.
Yeah,
like
that would fit the bill.
The University of Minnesota State Mankato is also very infamous.
Yeah.
How do you like that? Those two comparisons back to back right there.
I know
what I'm up to.
If Ian says how he really feels, he'll get in trouble.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's that quote graphic of that one's, was it a soccer coach who's like, if I say what I say, I'm gonna get in trouble.
Jose Mourinho.
Yes. And just break it down, right? Like, here's my grammar discussion, despite the fact that I'm not an English teacher in any sort. Like, famous is the root word here, and then you add the in prefix, and that kind of like, that's like a kind of cancels out the other part. So anyway,
not to get too off track here,
like, if you're inaccurate, like you're not in kind of takes like you're not accurate like that.
Yeah. I don't know if you ever took a Carl Sewell class.
Yes, I did. He was my very first class at Bemidji State University. Yes.
Yeah. I can't remember what writing class it was of his, but he would go through and he would do examples. Like, he'd find a scholarly article online or something, and we'd read through it. And one of them, he found, he was so upset that they used the word copious incorrectly. And I only know what copious means because of this instance, because copious is apparently something that is very plentiful. Like, if I have a basket of apples, like, oh, you have a very copious amount of apples right there. That's at least my best understanding. Maybe I'm totally wrong about that. But this person used the word copious to describe the sofa that they were sitting on. And he, like, blew up. He's like, what are they talking about? Like, that is not the correct word. And so from every point on, every paper I ever wrote in his class from that point on, I used the word copious at some point in it. I had to, like, if I didn't use it, I went back and I had to find a place to add it in.
Did he ever pick up on that, or did he just, like, want to throw you out the room?
He picked up on it because I think that I kind of hinted at it towards the end of the semester, and he's like, has that been you that's been doing? I did notice that. I just didn't put it together that it was the same person every time. I'm like, yeah, I had to. It was so funny. But yeah, that just kind of made me think of that, using some incorrect grammar.
Not to pick on the BSU guy, BSUBeavers.com people, because you guys do great work. You really do.
And for all we know, maybe it is very infamous,
Exactly. So maybe
I don't know. We don't know the lore, like CJ said.
Yeah, we might not. Yeah, exactly. So, whatever. I remember, by the way, going to the Carl Sewell class, using the word utilize. He hated the word utilize.
Yeah.
And he said never to use it in his class. And to this point now, I worked in TV, where I worked in news for 2 years. And then I also do writing gigs on the side. I write like a weekly article about the Twins for zonecoveragemn.com. You should read it. But also like how easy it is to use the word utilize. And I don't to this day, because I'd imagine him getting mad at me if I use the word utilize, because he's right. It's like, it's just like, find a different word. Like, come on, be better than that. Find something else.
I can't remember if it was Carl or not that he said his favorite word in the English language was crisp, because the word itself sounds very crisp. And I was like, oh, that is kind of cool. So crisp. I've always liked that word since then.
Yeah, exactly. Carl, that guy, he's a very interesting dude. And I can say whatever I want about him on this podcast because he is an infamous sports hater.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Maybe not hater. Maybe that's too strong. He's an infamous sports non-enjoyer.
Right. He's one of those people that thinks that there's better things to do with your time, which there probably is, but I don't. Really care.
You know what? I don't care for it. And is it really better then? If there was something better than it, I would have been doing that. But I'm doing this because I think it's better. So anyway, you can say whatever you want about him on the show.
Last Carl story that I have before we move off, I ended up following him on Twitter. I think he used it for like 2 months.
Yeah.
All I remember about Carl's Twitter is just very cryptic tweets, and then B, somebody disagreed with a tweet of his, I believe, one time, or I don't know what the context was, but this was back when Twitter, if you didn't set an avatar, it was just the like egg, the bird egg, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's all he said in his response to this person's tweet was, "You are an egg," and we were stupid college kids, and we found it so funny, and so that became our insult for each other for like a month after that. We just called each other an egg if we were ever a little frustrated that the dishes weren't done around the house or something. So yeah, we could go on and on about Carl Sewell stories if we wanted to, but
although I will say, to give Carl credit for sports related stuff, when my sophomore year of junior year, I think, of college, I was doing some stuff. Us and our mutual acquaintance and Shane, we're doing a bit for the TV station side of things. We were doing like a sports segment for some kind of news program that they wanted to put on. And Carl, I think, was helping, or just like kind of like being the person who would like facilitate it, like as an instructor, because this was like outside of class. And he immediately looked at us and was like, "You should go do a bunch of stuff about the women's soccer team. They're like really good this year." And that was like one of the first years they went to the NCAA tournament and stuff like that. And he was like, "You should cover them. Like, they're pretty good." So hey, give him credit. He
knew what was going on. He knew what was going on. He didn't admit it, but he knew.
He was a ball knower of BSU women's soccer.
Let us know in the comments your favorite Carl Sewell story if you know who the hell we're talking about.
Put it in the Discord, please.
Yeah,
please.
Exactly. All right, CJ. What's next on the docket here for spring sports?
Okay. Well, let's talk a little. We just got done with track and field. Baseball is ending their season coming up here. They have 2 games, and by the time you're listening, they'll be done in Minot against the Beavers. So the Beaver battle, we got to get the final tabulation of that next week, Ian. Don't forget.
I can work on that. Yep, I'll work on that for next week.
By the way, we're telling each other this now because we will forget next week's show. This is a thing that we are doing on-air production meetings all the time. So yeah, we got to track the Beaver battle. But then they wrap the season up, I believe, at home. I'm pulling up the schedule here, but it's not.
At home against St. Cloud next weekend. They'll have 2 games Friday and 2 games Saturday, which will be senior day. Both are double headers. Friday at 1:30 and 3:30, Saturday at noon and 2. And I'm sure that's weather permitting. If it's going to rain, they might move them up. If it's going to be nice, let's just hope that it's just beautiful weather and we can just get this over with and finish the season off with no delays and try to get some more wins here before the season wraps up.
Yeah, since we last talked, Bemidji State unable to pick some up. They lost to Mary in a doubleheader, 10-1 and then 12-2, and then fell and got swept by Concordia St. Paul down in St. Paul by scores of 3-1, 13-3, and 14-4. So just trying to finish the season with any kind of positive momentum would be the deal there. Those are the only two sports, track and field and baseball, that have games still on the schedule. We talked about men's golf last weekend. Why don't we talk women's golf? They had their NSIC meet last week over the weekend. And Bemidji State ended up finishing 11th out of 12. Any other kind of stats that stuck out to you, Ian?
Sophomore Haley Kaman. I guess there's two M's and two N's, so I assume it's Kaman. Led the Beavers and tied for 35th individually with a career 3-round low of 249, 84, 85, and then 80. And tied her career low round with 80 on that final day of the tournament. So I was going to look at what they got last year. I can't remember if it was 11th last year or if it was 12th, but not finishing last is always cool. That's very cool, because I think last year it was last place. So at the very least, moving up one, seeing some personal bests here in the recap is very good.
Last year they got 11th out of 12.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, consistency then, at the very least. Her score of 249 and 35th place was the lowest finish at the championship by a Beaver since Molly Albrecht shot 244 and finished 15th in 2022-2023 season. Actually, her sister Lauren finished behind her at 47th and shot 266, which was her first collegiate 3-round tournament. So good to see. Good to see. Good to see.
There we go. And of
course, it looks like, even though it's similar to women's hockey, kind of where, the results might not be better as a team, but some of the box score stuff that you look at, like after the game, you're like, oh, okay. Yeah, we still didn't get the result we wanted, but it's definitely getting better. Like, it looks right. The scores are better than they were last year, from what I can tell. So that's good. That's good. Improvement is all you can ask for.
Exactly. So looking now at women's tennis, we mentioned them last week. Their season coming to a close there. They did not make the tournament. Looking at our kind of spring sports wrap up, that's it for the men's, except for baseball, which again play next week. Women's golf wrapped up. Softball is pretty much all we have left to talk about for today's show. And that's as I'm waiting for the schedule here to pop up. They finished overall in the season though with a record of 21 and 31. They ended their season with a split against Northern in 2 games. They also split against the Dragons. And we kind of talked about Bemidji State needed to go 4-0 and needed some help if they wanted a chance to back into the tournament. But unfortunately, they split some close games. They only lost by a combined 2 runs. They lost 6-5.
Dude, and they got walked off in both of those games, if I'm not mistaken. No, they weren't at home, were they?
No, well, it depends, because sometimes with double headers, you're like the home team for one. Like, you're the home team for one and you're the away team for other, because you're playing a double header, so you don't have to travel. Like, it saves on a travel every other year.
Okay.
So you're like, our home game is the second game, quote unquote. So
I'm pretty sure, because I was following these on Twitter as they were happening yesterday. Or not, what am I looking
Saturday.
at? Yeah, yesterday too. Saturday and yesterday. As we're recording on a Monday, I should say, to anybody listening. So Saturday and Sunday. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they got walked off in both of those games in the bottom of the final inning. So just a brutal way for their season to come to an end. I mean, they did get a split, which is encouraging, because that's something that they had struggled to do over the course of the season. But yeah, unfortunately for those seniors, getting walked off in your final game is definitely not how you would have wanted it to end. But also credit to Northern State for honoring the Bemidji State seniors after the game had ended. I did see a little bit of a ceremony going on. I think that was, I can't remember whose page that was on, but I did see it after the game had ended there. So yeah, Bemidji State, unfortunately, I think, what did we talk about? The top 10 teams make it. And they finished just a couple games back. I believe one game behind Sioux Falls. So that's really unfortunate, man, because those two walk-offs are what prevent you. I believe Sioux Falls finished 10th. I could be wrong. I haven't counted it out yet, but if that was what prevented you from getting into the NSIC tournament, that would be absolutely brutal.
Well, and also it's the fact that you got swept when you played in Sioux Falls back in late March. They lost 13-7 and then 9-0. Like, it's because Bemidji State just did not get off to the conference start they wanted to. And by the time they kind of started to pick things up again, it was kind of just a little too late. They already kind of dug themselves in. And yeah, if maybe you split in that doubleheader, then it's only then you're only one, whatever, kind of going into that final weekend. But yeah, and by the way, I wasn't thinking. I thought Bemidji State was the home, or like I looked at it on the schedule, even though there's the @ right in front of the team name, I still thought they were home. So of course they got walked off on because they're the away team. God dang it. Right. So anyway, that's I mean, not the season they wanted, and they finished the year 8-20 in the NSIC, and that again, it just has to be better. But overall, when you compare it to a season ago, they were 13-38. So still, that's an 8-win improvement from a year ago to get to where they're at. A lot of it can be attributed to their non-conference start, but also, again, when you go a season ago back to 2024, they were 7-21. So they finished 8-20 this year in the conference. Yeah. So one more conference win. Right. Yeah. And that's good. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you're going to make your money playing in the NSIC. You can play well in the non-conference all you want, but a majority of your games are just going to be in conference. And a couple of years ago, Bemidji State was 12-14 in the NSIC, and that's how they were able to get into the tournament. They beat Mankato and that's 2023 season that we remember really fondly for the softball team. So it's just more of, you just got to find a way win in your conference. And it's easier said than done. There are some good teams in there, but ultimately, like, that's, if you're talking about steps and kind of trying to jump up, it's figuring out how to be better in the NSIC.
Yeah. A definite improvement needed there, but next year, if they get up back towards that 10, 11, 12 wins in the conference, I mean, it's all about improvements. And I think a lot of programs that might have finished short of their overall expectations this year did still improve. We're talking about baseball improved their win total, softball improved their win total, women's hockey improved their win total. I believe women's basketball improved or either finished with the exact same record. So again, even if it's not making the NSIC tournament and all these, women's tennis, it's the same thing there. So all of these programs, volleyball might have as well from the season prior. Because last year was the year that they.
I think volleyball gets SC. Volleyball gets
volleyball. Yeah, they get a little bit of a reprieve from that. There was some unfortunate events that took place there. So, but yes. Programs were improving across the board for the most part this year. And that's good to see. That's good to see that it's a step in the right direction for a lot of these programs. And hopefully next year is a continuation of that. It's really interesting that I feel like I remember that past season in 2023 way more fondly. Maybe it was just because it was our first year of Beaver Banter, first year in a long time for the softball program that they had been that successful, but they weren't far off of that this year. 24 wins compared to 21, like that's not that big of a difference. 8 wins in the conference compared to 12. Like a couple of those games go a different way, and you might be looking at a very similar season to a couple of years ago. So very interesting to compare those seasons side by side.
Right, exactly. The other thing is even if the win totals look the same, Bemidji State still had a tougher time getting in this year because the conference was just better record-wise than it was a couple of years ago. So it's that figuring out how to match the NSIC and try and play in it. And yeah, that'll be kind of the next step there. So outside of that, I think that's really it. I don't really have like a ton of big anecdotes to talk about other than, I don't know. I feel like it just needs to be said, Ian. How are the vibes feeling after the NFL draft?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. Chargers fan, at least. I honestly, I didn't pay too much attention to the Vikings draft outside of, I know they got Donovan Jackson.
They
and a
took
couple of
they
wide
picked like
receivers.
2 players, so there's not.
Yeah, they didn't have that many picks. So, but I liked the Donovan Jackson pick. I will say that in the first round, that was a really good one. But as somebody who's gotten older and has only started following the draft more and more, it's always one of my favorite weekends of the year. I just basically sit on my couch like a potato the whole time watching. And it's better too because the Wolves and the Wild are in the playoffs, so you get a little bit of extra action, especially when the Wolves are putting belt to ass on the Los Angeles Lakers.
No. It was the refs. You know, it was the.
Listen, man, I'm a fan of an LA team, and I think sometimes they don't get the right calls, but like.
I
think it's hilarious,
team,
bro.
Though.
Yeah, true. Like, I think it's hilarious to see a Lakers fan consider that the NBA might be rigging the games so that the Minnesota Timberwolves win the series over Luka and LeBron and the LA Lakers.
Yeah.
Because they definitely wouldn't make bank seeing the Lakers and the Warriors next round face off. It's definitely getting rigged against you, LA. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, clearly the NBA would not like to see LeBron versus Steph part 6. They would hate that. Adam Silver is like directed. No, are you crazy? It's the fact, by the way, that the Wolves have Laker fans in that means that they've won. Like they're broken. There's not like here's the adjustments they need to, like, they've just gone straight to the crying part, which has been hilarious. So maybe you should when you trade centerpiece, you're between 5 superstars. I don't need center. What are we gonna? By the way, they're gonna play Rudy Gobert off the court, which they kind of did. But then when they brought in, I think it's the lineup of Ant, DiVincenzo, Nas, Julius, and who am I forgetting? Whatever, one other one. Jaden thrown in there.
Oh, okay.
That 5 is the highest efficiency 5 offensively so far this playoffs. Like, okay, fine. You want to go small? That's fine. We'll take Rudy off the floor and we'll just run. Turns out LeBron and Luka are slow.
Yeah.
Like, they just no problem.
Your 2 best players are huge defensive liabilities at this point. One of them is just because he's like 40 years old. Like, he was at one point a great defender, but he's just too old and slow at this point to keep up like he used to be able to. But yeah. I don't know how I feel about Jared, by the way, using the term podcast boy when referring to JJ Redick. I was going to say, as somebody who is a co-host of a podcast, I might take offense to this. But then I thought, you know what? I'm not going to bring it up because then I can call him Podcast Boy because he basically is one of the co-hosts of the CCHA show. Like, he's on there every other week. So.
You wouldn't call him like Paperboy?
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, exactly. Somebody get Paperboy a tissue here.
Wouldn't you like to know, Paperboy?
Yeah.
Where the amount, again, I worked in TV, and the amount of times like one of the meteorologists would ask us for anything, and we just like legitimately, Marcus Osmus, friend of the podcast, he was a camera guy I worked with at the TV station there, and the meteorologist asked for something, and he went and like, "Wouldn't you like to know, Weather Boy?" and then walked away, like because if you can say that, why wouldn't you say it? And then exactly. the thing that makes that clip really funny is when the guy just like takes a second. Where are your parents? Like,
I'm pretty sure that he is his parent.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that's the lore behind that clip. I could be totally off base on that. But
no, it probably
I've heard
is.
Rumors.
There's no way
that's his kid.
There's no way that was like actual live TV, like ad, like that. Yeah,
I don't know, dude. If you met like a 13-year-old at this point, like they might be doing that. Like they might just be that like that obnoxious to a weatherman.
The most famous clip that I joke about all the time, and then we'll be done because we're clearly
rambling.
We're rambling. Is you ever see? I think it's like the Iowa State Fair. There's like some local journalist who's there in like the goat pit at the petting zoo, and then she looks at the one. She's like, "Could you not eat my pants?" And then like takes a second and like rams her, and she falls. And you hear her go, "Ah!" So it's just this clip of, "Could you not eat my pants?" Ah, and then falls over, and I quote that all the time because, like, if our dog is like sniffing my leg, I'm just like, could you not eat my pants and then whatever fall over? Like, it's a great clip. It's comedy gold. It's the best. But outside of that, Bemidji State sports coming to a close. Next week will be the final episode of the 2024-25 athletic season, and then we'll kind of go on a little summer vacation until then. But still show up for that episode. We're going to wrap up all the spring sports. We're going to talk about our favorite moments of the season, and we'll call it. And we'll maybe I think again on-air production meeting, Ian. Maybe a little Q&A. Maybe we could do a little mailbag or something like that. So
yeah. If you got questions, if you're in the Discord, we will put a. You know what? This will be a great week to do it. I was planning on doing it over the summer. I will add the extra channel into the Discord for podcast Q&A. I believe it's something we want to do more next year. We really just didn't know how many people we would have that ask questions, but it'll be a rolling thing. So if you ask a question in there, maybe we don't get to it one week because we don't think it's necessarily relevant to the conversation we're having, but it will eventually be talked about on the show. So yeah, it'll just be a rolling thing. It'll be its own subsection of the Discord, its own channel for podcast Q&As. So I'll go get that set up after this. And then, yeah, if you have any questions for the last show of the season, be sure to get them in there. Be sure to join the Discord if you're not. I have reposted the link last week. I noticed a new couple of people joining last week, so that was fun. It's always good to see. But yeah, I'll get that set up, and next week we can definitely have a little bit of a Q&A. Doesn't even necessarily have to be Beaver related, I guess. Like, it's the last kind of week. It's the last week of the season. You know, you get any question in there, and as long as it's at least a little bit appropriate for podcasting, like we kind of don't really have a filter, but
you'll know if we're making up the questions, if like all of a sudden it's just like, why are you guys so cool? Like, what was the, how popular?
How did you get so much aura?
How I
don't know.
Your name on campus, all of them. We were just it was people go to like, oh, you're the R&B sports talk guys. Like, yeah,
my name is very infamous on campus. That's a callback to earlier in the show, folks.
I understood that reference.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Good show, guys. We'll wrap it up again next week. Beaver Banter Podcast.